Absolutely. And so now it's time for tea time.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, trauma triggers.
Yeah, this came about like the last time we recorded, we were kind of talking about it, like why do we do some of the things that we do? It's like, oh, that's a trauma trigger. I think we were also talking about my son. A little
Yes.
backstory of why Milo's no longer with us, but my dog
Hello,
and
Devante.
Milo Devante, love him, miss him so much. But Milo Devante ended up biting my son and my son's friend, which was very like out of his character, like not usual, but very tragic and traumatic all in itself. I think now September 11th will have a whole new meaning for me. Not only is that the day that America was targeted, but now it's like the day that my son had this traumatic experience that I'll forever remember. So the boys are okay. So I'll start there where people are like, oh my God, where's your son? But they're good. But we were talking about it and how my son kind of has like flashbacks. Like he was like, he heard his friend was like laughing and playing, but he was like, in my mind, like I could see like Milo attacking him. And he was like, that's the memory that I had tied to that. And we were like, dang, like that's crazy.
And
Like,
he heard his friend screaming.
he
So the
heard
friend is
screams.
laughing, but he internalized it as he's screaming.
Yeah, which was really crazy. Like, so that sparked the conversation with us, like, hey, like, do we have those same triggers of things that happen to us? And we have no idea like why we react the way that we do, but it's always trauma. Trauma always finds its way to your life in whatever you're doing.
It does. It does. So then how do we want to, okay, so then do you want to finish the story about Milo Devante? Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, that I think that was like the spark of the conversation of my son having that kind of swift memory of his friend was essentially laughing and playing, but my son heard it as screams. And that was tied to like a trauma memory that he had, which triggered him to be like afraid in that instance when he was with his friend, like surrounded by like family and stuff. But hearing that took him right back to that place of the dog like biting them, which is crazy that so we have those.
Do we want to define what we think trauma triggers are?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's a memory or an emotion, and the brain is really like complex and really cool in that way that it takes you back to whatever the trauma was, like you're right in that moment. So I think it's like a memory, like a smell, a touch, a taste, a feeling, like your senses and your memories intertwined in this act of trauma that happened in your life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's your body giving some sort of response of fear or threat, right? Like you said, that's launched by a smell, a touch, a scent, just it could be anything, but it sends your body into like a threat response. Yes. So you could respond in different ways, right? But it's however your body wants to protect itself, right? You could become avoidant, dismissive, you could lash out. You could have nightmares. It could be a myriad of responses. So yeah, that made us kind of look inward and say, hold on now, what kind of trauma triggers do we have? And maybe we just learn to accept them and we don't even view them as trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Ooh, and it's and as we were talking about it, we was trying to name like all of our traumas like outside, like, okay, what traumas have I had? And why do I do the things we do? But it is so deep. And as I was driving here, it made me think about like my relationship with chips. And I just thought about this. So Renee knows like chips are my thing. Like I want to be chips. Like that's how much I love
dip, honey. Chips and then something to dip in. Oh my God. Hey, I know what I'm getting you for your birthday.
I mean, I'm just saying, I love that. I want to be
the finest chip I can find.
The finest chips and the finest dip. I want to be chips and dip so bad because I love them just so much. But I feel like that was always like, eating chips was always like my comfort. Like if I was feeling like sad or depressed or like just, things weren't going right in my life, like it was something easy I could get to. So it was just very much so like comforting. So I think that's another like trauma bonding. And I'm like, why can't I stop? Like if I'm dieting or whatever, like I just cannot give up chips, but it's so like intertwined in traumatic things that happened in my past, like as a little kid, where I'm just like, that's where that connection is. Like that's where that trigger is for me. Like as soon as I feel depressed, I'm going to buy some snacks, like immediately. Like that's my first thought to do that. Or if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling like unworthy, like all of those feelings like stem from like childhood things where it was just like, well, chips was gonna comfort me in that moment. And it always brings me back to that memory. Like I'm sad, and then I'll think about being sad when I was like 8. Like, oh no. And chips were probably there too. So
What are
that's
you gonna do? I don't know, but first I'm gonna go to the corner store.
that is what it was. Yes, at the corner store, the gas station. Like I'm going, and I can remember a time too, like just being like having no money, and I would find like change and be like, well, I have to go get chips. Like I'll look through purses or whatever. This sounds really bad, but it was like a drug. Like I'm gonna get chips no matter what, because I need that comfort right now.
By any means
By
necessary.
any means necessary.
Okay. Look.
Yes. That is funny. Like I just thought about that driving over here.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have definitely seen you max some chips.
Girl,
Being your
listen.
college roommate and all. I was like, so you're gonna eat all the snacks.
I will, yes, all of them. And that's how you know, like, girl, like what's going on? Because you just going in on the chips. Like they will be gone.
Chips are good. So
They are they are good
they
though.
are good. And it's like a mindless like distraction, right? Because you
Yeah.
can just pop them and just keep it going. So
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I think for me, so I have a few quirks, right? Like for example, I think I told you the example of how me and my coworker were doing a Fitbit challenge and she just like fell off the face of the earth. She had taken a step in like 18 hours or something ridiculous. So the next day I come to work and I saw another coworker and I was like, oh my God, Neela has not moved in 18 hours. What the heck? Like, we got to put out an Amber Alert. Like, we got to figure out what's going on. I was like, because you know what this means, right? And then the other coworker was like, her phone died or her Fitbit died. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a small possibility,
I
right?
mean,
It's
it
more likely
could
that she
happen.
died, right?
Right. I mean, I think that's like the last resort because I think.
But I realized that, and then you had brought this up too, because a couple of weeks ago, you had kind of broken your pattern where you didn't show up to the studio at still on time, but not in the normal timing that you would. And so I was trying to downplay it, like, hey, everything good? But you were like, bro, I wouldn't just not show up. And I'm like, no, I think you died. That's what you need to understand. For me, if people aren't where they're supposed to be, the worst has happened. Like they are dead. They are holding on to dear life, struggling with the phone an inch away from their hand and it's open. It's like a traumatic, tragic death that's awaiting them.
Yeah.
So I certainly have that, like that complex where I'm like, what happened to this person? Like, and I will call and check on people because I mean that. Where are you? Are you okay? Did you make it?
Listen, are you alive?
There? Exactly. Because people a lot of times are here today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it stems from my daddy issues, right? Like my mom was a pretty reliable parent, you know, thank God for her. My dad, obviously, he was dealing with his addiction. And what I am grateful for is that my mom divorced him. I am grateful for that because there's a lot of things that I did not have to witness, right? But whenever my dad would try to get clean and say that he wanted to re-engage in our life, my mom was always like, yes, absolutely. You know, she would even like help him, right? Like, oh, you just got out of jail. I will pick you up. I will give you my stepdad's clothes, right? Like whatever you need to do to be a father, I will enable you to do that. And the problem with that, and I mean, I don't know if I'm not going to say the problem with it, but the result, right? The impact is that my dad would be in and out. So he would this man, I mean, I don't know what is going on, because literally he could get out of jail tomorrow, find a job the next day, right?
Wow.
Like, yes, well paid, all of that. So he would so it would like appear as though he was making strides to get his life together. And then, like, especially if it was during the summertime, my mom would be like, it's the summer. He would say, like, I want my kids to stay with me, blah, blah, blah. So she would bring us to wherever he is, most likely my grandmother's house. And then next thing you know, you just wouldn't see him for 5, 6, 7 years.
Dang. I thought you was about to say days.
No, because by the time my mom would realize, okay, he has fallen off the wagon, then she would come get us, right? So these are conversations that obviously I wouldn't be a part of, because she would have these conversations with my grandmother. But you told us for the summer or for the week you're going to be with your dad. He left to go to work and never came back.
Oh my God.
Okay, never came back. And my mother and my grandmother, they didn't really explain that to us as kids, probably, my mom never wanted to down talk my dad. I think that she truly did view it as an addiction, one that she didn't want to put up with. But nonetheless, I think that she did view it as, what, if he's trying to do better, then I support that. But if he's not, then I don't support that. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she had the words, because my mom is such a daddy's girl. So I don't think she had the words to really say anything against him. And for my mom, she'd rather say nothing than to say something negative about someone. So, but for a child, you just fill in the gaps, right?
Yeah, you use your files that you have, which isn't much as a kid,
right? And so I don't know that at that time I was, aware that I was coping in that way. But as an adult, literally, if somebody is late, if somebody is not where they're supposed to be, I think you died. Like, I think the worst has happened.
Yeah.
So, and then two, I feel responsible. You know what I mean? Especially if I'm the last person you talk to or something like that. Like, what happened? So yeah, I think my mind literally goes worst case scenario. So whatever worst case scenario is for you, if somebody is sick, then I think that their sickness has just acted up and they are hospitalized and they are struggling. If, if you don't have a worst case scenario, I immediately choose death.
Because it gotta be you die.
There's gotta explain why you're not here.
That's the only answer, is you die.
Exactly.
Man,
right.
Wow.
Or you're doing 5 to 10.
Right.
In the state penitentiary.
It's only 1 or 2. That is it. 5 to 10.
Yeah,
for death.
I mean, it sounds crazy because my brother will call me sometimes and he'll be like, did you talk to mom today? I haven't talked to her. And I'll be like, dude, back up off of her. What is your problem? Give her space.
She's a grown woman.
Exactly. I'll be like, mind your business. If you mind your business, you're going to be calling me, asking me about your mom. Okay. She's minding her business. Maybe you should mind yours. So I do all of this big talk. Then I get off the phone with him and I'm like, Mama, why are you answering?
Say, Mama, where are you at? Put out an APB. Mama.
Exactly. Right. I call her job. I'm like, but did she come in today though? I just need to know if when's the last time that you physically saw her?
No, you don't cool. Call her job.
Girl,
no.
Let me tell you something. Okay. Because I'll be like, you know what? Because my brother will plant all those seeds, and I'll tell him like, dude, you are crazy, right? And then I get to acting crazy. Because then I start backtracking. I'm like, well, when is the last time I saw him? Then don't let me check my phone and I text you and you didn't respond. Oh no.
See, nah. Listen,
like for some people that's cool, but not my mama. You gonna respond to me, and I will call her and tell her that too. Like, look, lady,
that is so funny. To me. Listen, you got to, because that ain't safe now.
That's not safe.
Listen.
Exactly.
That is it, and what's funny, and I think for moms too, and with your mom being like your primary parent, it is like that too. So while you have that instance of your dad issues, but your mom is the primary parent that you knew growing up. So it's like, if something happened to her, like, what am I gonna do? You're my parent. You're my primary parent. Like, no, I need to know where you are.
And she'll be like, I was taking a nap. You know,
Yeah,
like,
girl, I hate that. That is so funny. My mom does it all the time. Like I'll call her and her phone will just like ring or go to voicemail or just ring and ring. And I'm like that too, because my mom was my primary parent. And my mom lost her mom at a young age. So I was always like overprotective. If my mom would be like, I'm about to go out. I'm like, oh no, where are you going? Who are you going with? What time are you coming? I used to sit at the door crying, like very Full House-ish, like being very dramatic, like, please don't go.
right.
Like, girl, bye, bro. Like, I'll be back.
Wow.
But yeah, but then when I was like 7 or 8, like my mom's boyfriend did like break in our house and try to kill her. So that was another traumatic instance that I had growing up. So I'm like that too, Sherry. Man, like if my mom don't answer, like I'm thinking like, oh, she died. Like it's
Exactly.
This is it. Like
Because
you
if
died.
you're a mom, you answer your phone, right?
Yes.
That's what moms do. Moms answer. Anybody else
Moms
can answer, but if you're a
answer.
mama, answer your phone.
Listen, you gotta put me on in case of emergency, whatever that's gonna bypass the settings that you have on your phone. Like
bypass all the settings.
I got to. You gotta answer because I don't play that. And yes, I will call my mama and call her a million gazillion times till she answers because now you're doing too much.
Right. What do you think this is, lady?
Listen, mamas, they hard headed. But oh yes, I definitely will do that. Or like if, like you said, if she don't text me back and I'm like, okay, like it's been hours. What you doing? Like
Right.
who you with? What you doing? And why you didn't text me back? Like it's simple. Like gosh, mom, it's easy to text. It takes a second. So,
I just feel like, the day that you become a mom, you're literally a mom for the rest of your life. So like answer your phone.
You got to. Yes.
Like this was cool 35 years ago, ma'am. But this don't work no more.
Right.
Okay.
It wasn't no
Answer
cell phone. Right. Now it's easy. The phone is with you, bro.
Exactly.
I know you have
it's
it.
A cellular phone. you want to text me
hand.
everything else? Text me. Do something. Send a smoke signal.
That's my mama. You want to be on Facebook all day. Let me message you on Facebook.
And don't let her not answer and had a nerve to post something on Instagram. Oh no.
Nah, mama, you is tripping. Oh my God. But that is so funny now that I am a mom. I'm like, do I be answered? But I do, because JR is like in my favorite setting. So if he calls and my phone is like on do not disturb, I will answer the phone. Just because again, like I'll be worried about him. Like when he's not with me, I'm like, okay, are they safe? Because again, another traumatic thing happened with my son. His dad's house got broken into one day and they were all there. So now I'm like, you're right. I'm like, oh my God. So now I'm like, he called, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, are you okay? You there by yourself? Like, who there? Like, I need to know all the pieces. So yeah, I definitely will answer the phone. And it's funny because one of my coworkers, we were all talking and she was like, yeah, like you need to always answer your phone, like no matter who calls, because you never know like what the call is about. And I kind of took that to heart. So now I really do try to answer the phone, even for numbers I don't know. Like I'm gonna answer, and if it's a telemarketer, I'm hanging up. But I try to answer the phone because for different people, like we're talking about our trauma triggers, but that could be a trauma trigger. Like if you call me and I didn't answer, I'm triggering your trauma. Like why are you not answering the phone?
Yeah.
So I'm very like conscious of it now. Like just answer, bro, because you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's
crazy.
It is, but that definitely sticks with you. Or I don't know about you, if you've ever gotten a call from like a family member telling you like another family member died. Like I don't like those calls, which stopped me a lot of the times from answering the phone, especially if I was getting calls at like 3 a.m., like those odd times where it's just like, I already know, like you're about to tell me some bad news at this time.
Yeah. When my dad fell off the wagon, my stepmother called me in the middle of the night and I was sleeping on the couch actually. And she called me in the middle of the night and I was so disoriented. Like I was like, I didn't know how. I was like, I know I need to leave, but I don't know how.
You was like frozen. Like you just
I was like, do I put on clothes? Am I good? Can I go like this? Where's my keys? Where's my key? Like I couldn't focus. And so when people call me in the middle of the night, it triggers me. But specifically when my stepmother calls me, it triggers me. So when she calls, I don't care what I'm doing. I could be in the nude, bucket naked. Okay? Answering this phone, you're just gonna have to see what you're gonna have to see, lady. Okay, it is what it is.
Hey, whatever.
But
so when she calls at any time, it triggers you.
Yeah, seeing her name on my phone triggers me.
Wow.
Because the thing about my dad, because remember when I was a kid, my mom never told me that my dad had a
Mm-hmm.
drug addiction. So I literally just thought he just left for 5 to 7 years at a
Yep.
time.
He went to college. What they used to tell the kid, your dad's in college, your dad be in jail. Like why would
Girl.
you tell me
No, but
that?
he literally would like I knew that he was in jail, right?
Oh,
I
you
knew
did?
that,
Okay.
but I didn't know why. My
Mm,
mom would just say like he did stuff he wasn't supposed to do,
yeah.
right? I knew that, that they had got a divorce, right? But she never told me the why.
Mm-hmm.
So again, your brain just fills in whatever you think. And so, he would just get out, spend time with us for a couple days, and then he would do something. Cause if you're an addict, they look craziness. Okay. So he ended up back in jail always.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he always had warrants. He's like, my dad is like a 4-time felon. Okay.
Oh wow.
So, oh yeah, absolutely. So when when she caught me that night, that was my first actual experience of okay, this is what people go through when they're dealing with somebody who's on drugs. So I'm literally out in the middle of the night at a crack house looking for my father, right? Because he
Mhm.
thinks that I can't find him. But let me tell you something. I can find you if I
Listen,
want if I
I
want to.
mean, the FBI need to get you on payroll immediately because you was on it. Like, I ain't playing no games.
Right.
Mm,
Exactly. So, that night was a whole lot to take
yeah.
in. I saw things that I've never seen. I felt like I was in a movie, right?
Mm,
I don't know who, it was just a lot going on. So literally anytime I see my stepmother's name, and it's crazy because I talk to her all the time. So before that night, I would see her name on my phone all the time.
yeah.
But now, ever since that day, anytime she calls, like literally my heart leaps out of my chest. My chest gets tight. Like I'm
Oh.
stressed because I'm like, what is it? What do you want? Like, oh, I was just okay.
Right. Then you
Right.
can exhale. Oh,
Right. Because
but yeah.
she'll be like, I'm making this. And I'm like, oh, you just want to tell me what you're cooking? That's cool.
Right. I can do
And half
that.
the time it's really my niece calling from her phone.
Oh, dang.
I'm like, oh, okay, that's the baby. Okay, cool. I'll sit here and, color with you or whatever. That's cool. But for the first 5 seconds, like I get so
Mm,
anxious. Like I have to answer. I need to know what's going on. Like, what is it? But
yeah.
my dad is probably the worst person to not be where he's supposed to be or to be late.
Mm.
Like that, I'd be like, I have to pray.
Listen, because I'm sure, like we talked about at the beginning with JR, like it takes you right back to that instant.
Oh, you go right back there. Like my
Like,
body goes into a full threat response. And
I'm
that's one
sure.
thing that I realized too about
Mm-hmm.
about my stepmother and my stepsister, is my stepbrother was murdered,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in college. And he literally went outside, talked to them, hey, well, went outside, going in and out the house, watching our younger sister got shot, one bullet, gone, died in
Mm.
my sister's arms, right? And so one person that I know for sure, if I don't answer, that's going to keep calling, that's my little sister. Because she's
Yeah.
like, okay, now what's going on?
Yeah.
Because literally the whole idea of being here 1 second and being gone the next, that's something that she and I have in common. Because my dad would do that, and then obviously that happened to her with my stepbrother. So
Mm.
yeah, very, which just makes you crazy. It's what it does.
It does because it keeps you anxious. Like I think that's like the perfect word. Like it just makes you very anxious like every time. And it's like,
Right.
how do I get out of this feeling? Like, how do I stop that?
That's the question,
I
right?
know,
How do I
right?
stop
How
that?
do you
Because
stop
it's
that?
so weird how one thing can change the trajectory of your experience. Because how many times has my stepmother called me and it's not been a threat
Listen, probably
versus
like
one
100
phone
times,
call?
right?
Exactly. Versus one singular phone call. Your dad falls off the bandwagon one time in a decade, and look what happens.
Listen,
Like I
that's
just,
devastating though. Especially with
but
you having not ever seen him like that.
oh no, it never, absolutely never,
Mm.
absolutely not. And so it was just so strange because I'm like, she calls me every day, 2, 3, 4 times a day. She calls me one time with bad news, and my body can't revert back.
Mm.
It's like,
That's
and that's why
crazy.
I do think that there are some things that you cannot undo. Like
Mhm.
some things you have to learn to cope with, but in some things you cannot undo, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what's called irreparable damage, right?
Yeah, that's that Pandora's box. Once it's open. Like
Once it's
there's no
open, it's
shutting
open.
that. Like you cannot turn back the hands of time on that.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
really interesting that our minds won't let us forget that moment. But like you said, it can cope, but it can't forget.
Exactly.
Like
Because
that
like
file is forever
I
there.
I know that if people aren't where they're supposed to be, I know that I'm overreacting, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
aware of that, so I'll try to tone it down. So that's why when I called you, I was just like,
Yeah.
hey.
Hey girl, you on your way?
Right. Well, really what I want to say is you alive?
Like,
You're not
girl,
somewhere in the ditch, are you?
hey, are you in the ditch? I'm like, bro,
Right.
I'm literally outside walking in.
So I know that I'm completely overreacting, but I need to calm my anxiety, right?
Mm.
So I'm like, hey, like you could have literally answered the phone and been like, F you, and I'd be like, cool, right? Because I
Hey,
just want to know if
you
you're alive.
answer. Listen, all
That's
you
all
need
I
to do is
want.
answer. Answer the phone. That
Right.
was it.
That's all I need.
That is so interesting. And I just keep thinking about the mind, and which will probably have me Googling like about those files that's in our head, those trauma files. Like you can cope. Maybe you go to therapy, you have a counselor or whatever the case may be, you talking with friends or your pastor or whoever it is. Like you can talk about it and share like we're doing right now on this podcast, but it's like those things will still be there. Like you're still going to get anxious when people don't answer. And I'm still going to, get anxious or terrified if my mama don't answer, or if I'm feeling depressed, I need to go get these chips or whatever. Like that's really interesting how the mind works, where it doesn't let us forget, but it lets us cope and kind of heal those pieces. But it's still like a piece that's fragmented.
Right. Right, because your mind is just trying to protect your survival, right? So
Mm.
it's like, hey, this is a threat, this is a trigger, right? This is a warning, warning, warning. This has
Mm-hmm.
happened before. Learn from what happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I feel responsible. So if let's just say that day, right, when you showed up later than on time, but later than just normal, right? My fear is that let's just say later we realize something actually happened,
Mm.
but it could have been prevented, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
there's all these stories. Like I remember a couple years ago, it was that day where it was like negative 50 degrees or something here. And this girl, she was a nurse, worked at Freighter, got some guy attacked her.
Oh my
She ended
gosh.
up underneath her own vehicle. Her husband was calling, people were calling and doing stuff, but nobody physically went there to go check. She
Mm.
froze to death underneath that vehicle because of the temperature that day. But they said like, oh, if she would have been found in these many hours, she would still be alive, right?
Shut up. How did I not
And
hear about this?
so,
This was in Wisconsin?
girl, yes, it was
I did not hear about that.
horrible.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
a horrible story. It was a horrible story. But the point is, my whole fear is always like, okay, what if you were in a ditch, right? And for the
Mm-hmm.
first 2 hours, if I would have found you then, everything would be fine. But it was hour 3 and 4 where the suffering and the death happened,
Mm.
right? So it's like, so I think that's my whole, I don't know.
Yeah, like how can I recover from that where I didn't have the opportunity to kind of save you and get to you or do something about it, like to help?
Right. I would
Um,
probably never be able to rest with that,
mm,
Like if I were her husband or her friend or whoever, and they were like, yeah, if she would have been found in the first hour, I'd be like, oh, like what? And
that's
so
so
I literally
crazy.
have to, it's crazy because I literally have to talk myself out of it. Like I'll be like, hey, Chanel's always late. You know what I mean? Like it's
Listen,
only 5 minutes and she's not late, right? Like, what's the
listen.
likelihood that she's actually dead? Like,
But you be on it, like even when like Scarlett was out of town, and we was talking to her about it. But you was like, yeah, if you don't call, like I will book a flight and I will come down there.
yeah,
Like,
I had to
don't
tell
trip.
her, like, don't, this is not a drill. When
Listen,
I call or text, you have this window of time to
answer.
respond.
Or I'm gonna be
Okay.
right outside your hotel
I
room,
will
like,
consider
let
it just
me
an
in.
imminent threat and I
Hey.
will be out there. Either I'm coming or I'm sending folks. And I had already set up shop
You had the whole plan.
I had a
out,
contingency
like,
plan. Yes, I did.
here we go.
Because
Listen, I'm gonna be
what
ready.
what I never want to do is be sitting there talking to the parents of my friends,
Mm,
right? Trying to console them for the loss of their child. I can't do that.
yeah.
So
Knowing that you could have possibly done something, but
exactly,
yeah.
because you got to think about it too. Like with her, it's like, okay, so y'all knew she was going.
Like, yeah, we would. Woo,
You ain't set up like
you ain't
what?
say nothing.
You ain't say nothing. You ain't do nothing.
Ooh,
Okay, what
no,
kind of
yeah,
friends are you, right?
that would have been awful. So
So
praise God, everything went well. That would have been terrible. But yeah, no, that is really interesting. And I think that's for me too, like just like you said, talking yourself out of it or just giving yourself a moment, like, okay, like let me think logically here. Like she didn't answer, my mama didn't answer the phone because she works third shift. She's probably asleep. She's probably at the doctor or at the dentist or whatever. She will call me back. So I think I take those moments too, like she gonna call you back. Like just relax, don't worry.
my mama be not calling back sometimes.
That is your mama's say,
my mama like, you worse than these fill in the blank here.
Okay. Eggs.
Okay. That's what I told her. Like, you the worst nigga. Okay.
Listen, here. That is funny. She said, my mama don't call back sometimes, so I don't know. Hilarious. Yeah, my mama would definitely call back, and even I think it was me that was like your mom. Like I didn't want to answer the phone, but that's another trauma trigger that I had where I was just like, I can't answer the phone because I know I might have to do something. So I was just like, do not disturb every day. Silence. My phone was on silence and do not disturb like every day, all day, because that's how much I did not want to hear my phone ring. Like it was just really bad. So. But then after having a conversation with my coworker, I was like, okay, you gotta answer. Like, even if you don't feel like talking, which I'm not a big phone person, but I'm going to answer. And, we'll talk for a minute and I'll be like, all right, you gotta go. But definitely trying to answer the phone because that is scary. And like I said, if you've had instances like I've had where family members call you in the middle of the night, like so-and-so died, or it's just like, those are the worst things, like to wake you up out of your sleep because somebody passed away. It's like the worst thing ever to me. And those things always stick with me too, just remembering that person's voice on the other end of the line, like trying to get through like sobs and tears telling you that somebody in your family died, like that.
Exactly. Or the screams. Like
Yes.
I can never get those out. And then like seeing people cry who never cry.
Yes,
right? Seeing
the worst.
Play a different version of themselves.
It's like
because
forever.
of their trauma. Yeah.
Yes. It's like burned right in your memory. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So those things are the worst. But I think some coping mechanisms that, like I said, work for me is just talking myself through it and then, not going off the deep end. And that's easier sometimes said than done, especially for me, because I do tend to go off the deep end quite a bit. But just calming myself down and just saying like, okay, they gonna call you back, or this person will show up, or, it's tomorrow is a new day. Like, don't let today like really engulf you. Like there's always tomorrow, it'll be better, take one day at a time, like things like that. Just to remind me that it'll be okay eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree. My another trigger is meeting people online.
Oh yeah. Explain that one. Meeting people online. What had happened? Jesus.
What had not happened? Okay.
Listen, literally, you gave it a valiant effort, and what had not happened?
What had not happened? Okay, but no.
Jesus.
So when COVID hit, so like back in 2020, earlier on, I said, oh, I'm going to try online dating, which, by the way, I've been against since the land before time. I was like, I don't believe in this. This just seems ridiculous.
Not gonna happen.
I said, you know what? I'm going to do it because it's COVID, right? And I'm literally in the house all day.
Yeah.
So here I go, right?
Here I go.
Come. There I go.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey. Oh, Lord, a lot of mystical reference. Okay.
Right, just a little bit. But No, so a few things happened. So first, there was this guy that I met online. We were exchanging messages
Mm-hmm.
probably over a few days. Um, and then he had asked for my phone number. He ended up calling me. We talked one night, and in this conversation, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not talking to this guy anymore. Like something is off. Can't say what it is. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I'd venture that this gentleman is on the spectrum somewhere. Not my problem though. I will just mind my business
Hey,
and it doesn't matter, right?
but it was very much something is what it
Something.
was given.
But I figured I don't need to figure out what it is because it don't
Mm-mm.
matter,
No,
right? Because this is the last conversation, first and last. So
listen.
then the next day, like he kept texting me and I
Mm.
didn't respond because I'm working or doing whatever, or maybe I just didn't want to. Who knows? But by the time I look at my phone, there was voicemails, there was all these back-to-back messages. I need to explain why I haven't talked to him, why I haven't responded. And so then I finally responded and I was like, I don't owe you anything because
Oh,
I
right.
don't know you. Okay, just
Right.
so
And
we're
you don't
clear.
know me.
You don't know me, most of all. And also, just so we're very clear, I no longer, because of all this, I no longer wish to have any further communication with
Mm.
you, right? And then the messages just persisted.
You should have blocked him like right
Um,
after that.
so eventually I did, right? So the messages kept coming. So then I was like, okay, let me make sure that I am explicitly saying what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying. So I said what I said twice
Oh
just
my
to make
God.
sure that it was clear. But the messages just kept coming. And so I
Mm.
stopped responding because I'm like, okay, if you keep engaging, then you're enabling, right?
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, there will be no more communication. You're just going to have to get over this and move on, right?
Listen,
Because
hey,
again, you don't know me
exactly. You
and
don't
I don't
owe him not a damn thing.
exactly. But then, of course, somehow he like found me online. He was apparently listening to our episodes, probably listening now because that's what stalkers do.
Okay.
And engaging in our when we would go live,
Hmm.
right? Messaging me after we did something like, "Oh, you did such a great job, blah blah blah. You're so this and you're so that, blah blah blah." I just wouldn't respond. Messaging you
Yeah, that
because I
was so
think you
weird.
posted something. So I think you tagged me in a post or something like about going to cops or something. So messaging you, then ends up following me,
Mm-hmm.
which is when I was like, okay,
Listen.
all right. So then I went. So that day when I once I realized that I was being followed, then I went to my dad's house, and my dad said, "We're going to put it into this right now." And he called
Mm-hmm.
this young man and made some threats. And so the man is like, "I'm going to call the police on you. You're making threats." Da 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 da. And my dad said, "First of all, hold on. I'm a pastor now, but let me tell you something. I'm a 4-time felon. Apparently, I'm not afraid of the police.
I said,
So
first of all,
do whatever you need to do,
right.
but make
Call
sure
the
that you're
police for
clear."
your benefit, not
Exactly.
mine.
Call them for you, not for me.
Listen.
Just so we're clear, I meant what I said
Mm.
and I said what I meant, right? So
Crystal
it is
clear.
what it is,
It is what
right?
it is.
It is what it is.
That's
And I'm
what a
like, this
psycho.
is crazy, right? I'm
Yes.
giving y'all the condensed version, but I'm like, so that made me be like, what is wrong with people?
Mm-hmm.
Are people online, you know, have a screw loose? I don't know, whatever.
That would leave a bad taste in my mouth too, because that no.
Left a very bad taste in my mouth. So then I met this guy on Instagram.
Mm.
And I knew something was off because your intuition will kind of tell you, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
something is not quite right, but I can't quite put my finger on it. So my antennas were up, and this guy, I asked him what he did, and he said something like, "I'm an investigator agent," and I'm like, "That's not even a real title." Like, if you're gonna
And
lie, at
first of
least be
all,
fluent in the lie,
go on,
right? Like,
Inspector
or just
Gadget. What
say,
are you
or just
saying?
say you do something basic that you could at least, something general, but like you're gonna get specific on something and then misname it. So I'm like, okay, red flags, right?
Oh my
So this
gosh.
guy keeps talking to me, and I keep being very vague because I know something is off, right? But
Hmm.
I'm like, what is going on here? And then I ain't gonna lie, I even thought at one point I was like, I think this is a girl because
Mm.
this is very feminine energy. Very,
Wow.
very yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then, so then this person, because people will tell on themselves if you let them talk,
Yeah, they will.
right? So this person said something that led me to believe, I was like, no, this person knows who I am,
Mm.
right? They're posing as someone else. So of course I called backup because you know who the best FBI agent is.
The
Shout
best
out to
investigator.
the best investigator. Because I've been out of that game for a while. So I was like, I don't know.
Listen,
I'm a little rusty, but I know who I
but
can go
I
to.
got some reinforcement
I
who've been
got
doing
some,
this.
right, exactly. Like I have the resources, okay? So, I called my my investigator bestie, and
Hey.
within a couple hours. And it's crazy because she started off by making a list, and she
Mm.
put this person on the list. She put my old assistant pastor on the list. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this doesn't make sense, because I haven't been at that church in over a decade. This makes no sense. Like, what kind of fatal attraction is this? So I
Right.
said, take him off the list. And she said, no, no, no. He,
No.
I say who goes on the list, right? I was
Listen,
like, and so I'm like, yes, ma'am.
this
This
is
is
my perp list,
you.
okay?
Okay, exactly. So she made her list, and she's like, I know you don't want this person on the list, but they going on the list. And I said, yes, ma'am. Right. And
Mm.
so she cracks the code. Why is it the old church that I used to go to? It is the assistant pastor who's married, by the way.
Knew it. Crazy.
Exactly. And I'm like, first of all,
Now that's some fatal attractions too.
you're a pastor, or at least you pretend you play
That's
one on
number
TV.
one. That's number one.
But so he stole a profile of this other guy, which again shouts out to my investigator bestie
Listen, all
because
that catfish
he
paid off,
cracked
huh?
the code like none other within hours. And I'm like, you don't even know him. Okay.
Listen, catfish, give her a job
But
because she
please
cold.
give her a job. But in any case, I will say this. So this brings me back to my other trigger. So the guy who he was pretending to be, once I figured out who was catfishing me, like the real person, and then who the real person, the original profile of the one that was copied, I was
Uh-huh.
like, he hasn't posted in like 6 months. Is he okay? Did he die?
Oh my
Like,
gosh. So
literally. And then
yes.
I thought I was being, triggered, but investigator Bessie said the same thing. She was like, should we just message the original person to see if he's okay? Because he hasn't posted in a while.
That is a trigger and a trigger. What?
A trigger and a trigger.
A
So I
trigger
said,
and a
look, your girl
trigger.
is done with
Oh
online anything. Okay.
my gosh. Yes, that's a bit much, especially.
That's a bit much. And by the way, I don't understand why people catfish because I've said this before. If you think you catfishing me, first of all, I think that we have enough intuition to know that something is off. And I think the reason why I felt feminine energy is because this pastor, in my opinion, is very messy and kind of
Mm,
like, how like some women just like drama and like to
drama,
stir
yeah.
up mess. I think that's where I got that energy from.
And you
But
was dead right on. Like your intuition was right on the money.
right, I'm like, this is crazy. But but in any case, I don't understand the point of catfishing because while that may work for some other people, you lied to me because again, this is another trigger. You lie to me, you show me who you are, you present yourself as something else. To me, everything else goes out the window. Like if I feel like I've been duped or betrayed or you presented yourself to be something other than you are, once I discover the real you, everything else goes out the window.
Mm,
You can
mm-hmm.
negate the whole fake relationship. I count that as all fake. This is the real, and I do not accept this.
Yeah, and now I'm
So,
done. Like,
and now I'm
no,
done.
and go back to where you was, because no. And it should be
Exactly.
done because it was all a lie anyway. So it
Exactly.
doesn't
And
really
people
matter.
and on Catfish, they be like, no, but all of that was me, just the picture. No, no, no.
No, it was all a lie.
It's all a
Like
lie.
the whole thing was a lie, which is
Exactly.
crazy. And yeah,
Exactly.
I've never gotten catfishes either. And I was trying to watch the show too, but I think as seasons went on, I was like, this is stupid. Like, how are people still
But
getting
that's what Nene
catfished?
says all the time. He's like, guys, I've been doing this show. Like, y'all, I should be out of business by now. This doesn't make any sense.
Literally.
Like, do better. You have all the
Like,
resources, like the internet, like you have everything that you need.
Everything that I'm doing
Y'all
on the
can
show,
say the
y'all can
IP
do it.
addresses, like you can
Everything.
do the most. You don't even have to be a technical person. YouTube it, like figure
Listen,
it out.
you too can catch a catfish because it's
Yes,
super easy.
exactly.
So
But I
crazy.
think what was triggering about the last catfish is that I was like, oh my God, is that the stalker dude?
Yeah,
At
it
first.
took
Like
you
I
to
was
that
like, wait
moment.
a minute. Yep. So it made me default there. So now I'm just like, don't meet me online. You have to meet me in person. Unless I've already met you and I already know who you are and I've seen you.
Ain't no online. Like,
Right.
no, we got to see each other face to face because now, no, this is too much. And that too would make me be like, no, too. So I don't blame you because, nah.
Right. But
People
shouts out, like
are
that's when I
nuts.
was like, I have to give my investigator bestie a round of applause. Just
She
me. But I'm like,
snapped. She snapped. I'm like, ooh, yes. Because, yes.
I'm like, you don't even know any of these people. How is this possible?
It is funny because I think this was a day I was like a gazillion text messages behind in our group chat. And I was like, dang, like as I'm like going back.
Yeah, you just see the progression of the
Yeah,
story.
I was
Like,
like, what? Like, I was like, this is not real. Like,
you're
I
like,
had to
so he's
keep,
off the list. So he's on the list. But there's these other
yes,
10 people on the list. Is it a girl? Is it not?
I had to keep reading, like, this cannot be real. Like, what is happening right now?
Right. I'm like, what in the pastor is this?
What in the pastor? Yeah, like, sir, really? You supposed
Jesus,
to be,
have some shame,
please have some shame. And you a
please.
whole married. Have a lot of shame,
A
actually,
whole married, and you
because
haven't seen me in over a decade. Okay, and even back then, I said no.
exactly. And why am I on your mind? Like, why are you worried about what I'm doing? I'm very confused.
Right.
Hot mess. Oh my gosh. But yes, I do not blame you one bit. Nah. If you want to date, we gotta meet in person because nah, that's those are too much, both of those instances. And nah, I'm out.
Right.
But yeah, I think my trigger in relationships too is another weird one, I feel like. But
You do have some weird ones.
I do have some weird triggers. You date somebody for long term and you like living with them and you're making a life. And that really like in my following relationships was like I can't do this stuff with people because I'm like, this not gonna get me nowhere. So maybe it's not a trigger, maybe it's just like a wall is probably what it is, where I'm like, I can't do that because I've already done this and I saw where it got me. So when guys ask me like, oh, cook for me or do this or, make it like we are together and I'm doing all these duties, like I can't do that because that don't get me anywhere. So I get really like defensive, I think. So that's my mechanism is I get defensive. So no longer am I anxious, like I really get defensive, like, well, I can't do that. And I be like, no. And maybe I'll start an argument or I'll do something that'll piss them off or whatever the case may be. But it's just like, I can't do, like I'm acting out because I'm so like messed up from before. Like I can't do that because no, then we're not gonna get anywhere from me doing this. So that's definitely one of my other weird triggers where I'm trying to get out of that. Just because you gotta not forget, but I do need to cope with that and understand that
Is
it
there
may.
anything in particular? Is it specifically cooking or is cooking just an example?
I think cooking is definitely cooking and cleaning, like, and even before, like I tried to do that, but I just felt like bad about it. Like I don't want to do this because it's like for what? Like what am I doing this for? So it will just piss me off. Like as I'm doing, like I'm not doing it because I want to. I'm just doing it so you can shut up talking to me, and then I'm gonna be pissed off about it.
Resentment.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
resentment for sure.
So then
So
is it I don't want to, do you feel like you're playing house or what is the why can't you do it? What's the
it's
why?
it's definitely like I don't want to feel like I'm playing house with nobody, son, because that's out. And I've done that before, and I feel like it didn't get me anywhere. And I can't see myself doing that with somebody when I feel like I've had an experience of the end result and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So now I'm like, no, you don't get that from me. And when you ask me for it, it's gonna make me angry. Like, cause no.
And now I'm gonna start an argument.
You listen, and now I'm about to go in on you because I'm not doing it.
Listen, and now I gotta talk about your mama. All because
Listen.
you asked me to make dinner.
Now, listen, now I'm about to rib you because I don't want to do this. Just really start going in. So yeah. But that's definitely something that I know I'm gonna have to cope with. And I've been single now for so long where it's just like, okay, like really, why is that so hurtful to you? Like, get to the root of that. Like, you apparently are still salty about the relationship not ending. So like really heal from that so you can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And not even about, let me rephrase that because I don't want nobody to listen to this like, oh, you still thinking about him? I'm not, like, not that the relationship ended, but I think the time invested it didn't go anywhere. And that was a long time.
Do you feel like, I guess I'm trying to get to the root cause too. So are you saying that you felt like you were giving from like the depths of your soul and then it didn't pan out? Because I mean, in a relationship, one thing that my brother always tells me, right, is it's a risk, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So either way it goes. But I think that there are certain things for different people that are, so when you were in this relationship and you were cooking and doing these things, was that something that you wanted to do then, or were you doing it to appease the other person?
I was doing it because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. And again, growing up in a household where, you know, that's what I saw from my mom and her different relationships, having my mom having never been married. So that was the thought that this is what I'm supposed to do in this relationship. So not really knowing that I could have been like, no, I don't have to do this. Like, we don't have to live together, like things like that. Now that I'm older and I've had relationships that I know, like, okay, this is not exactly how, you know, you wanted it to be. But I think just trying to imitate what I saw growing up in my mom, and not saying that that's bad for her, but I just felt like for me, like, this is not what I wanted for myself.
Right.
So, and I think that is where it comes from, of just, you know, this is not quite the relationship that I wanted for myself. So once I was in it, that I felt like I had to do. And I think we were both just making it work because we felt like this is what we had to do. So yeah, but then, you know, moving forward, and it was a lot of time invested. I mean, those was my prime years too. And I'm just like, hey.
I know, right? We giving these dudes our best years.
Listen,
Not again.
never, never. I mean, there was like my 20 to 25, like the prime years. Like, but it's all good because, you know, 30 is a new 20. So getting a little start over. I mean, just a little bit.
It's really not, but whatever.
But yeah, man, relationships can be traumatic as well. And it doesn't always have to be like, you know, physical or emotional, but, you know, there are things that can happen in a relationship that's very traumatic to you. And then you kind of hold on to that. And certain things do trigger that. So, you know, if a guy asks me to like cook and clean, I'm gonna be like, for what? Like, why do I need to do that?
I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it that you just don't want to play this role and you felt like you were being a puzzle piece, like, let me do this because this is what I'm supposed to do? Or is it that you don't want to do it without, you want to be the role, not play the role?
Yes, I want to be the role and not play the role.
Okay, so if you are married, you don't mind cooking?
No, if I'm your wife and you've let that be known and you've made that statement and you feel like you can trust me and we're in this together, then I don't have no problem with that. Like, you know, like, what's his name? Shannon Sharp. Listen, I will do it all. Like Shannon Sharp. That ain't no problem. I will do it. But if I'm just playing this role and you're kind of like just stringing me along, then no, I can't do that. And I have every right to be like, no, because I've done that before. And I feel like now I know, you know, I know better. So I need to be doing better on that aspect. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Gotta learn, man. That's what it's all about.
One of my relationships, I don't know, is it a trigger? I don't know, but it's a coping mechanism, right? It's like listening to sad music.
Oh yeah.
Specifically, Keisha Cole.
Yeah, specifically.
Specifically. So, and it was so crazy because literally when we were neighbors, like you and Skylar would text me like, is everything okay? Like anytime y'all would hear that song, because that was y'all
Girl,
signal, like, woman down.
we knew.
It's not a drill. Check on them. Things are not okay.
Listen, friend
Anything
check
can
like a
happen.
mug. Yes.
Right. But I think that what I realized after is that I don't think that serves me, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it just perpetuates an idea, a negative opinion about men, right? And I was like, I don't want that. That's this dude, so be done with him
That is
and move
true.
on. But now I'm like, let me listen to something upbeat and happy
Yeah.
because I don't want this idea to even ruminate, right? Like I just
Yeah.
want that to be, I want to see the truth, right, about this individual, but I don't want to apply it across the board.
Absolutely. And I, they say that like everything that you pour into your body is, I mean, it feeds into your body. So the music that you listen to, the things that you watch on TV, so all of that. So I think that's tight that you noticed that and was like, nah, I don't want to have this idea of this one particular person, and that spew out to every man that I meet thereafter when that's
Right.
not the case.
Right. Because then I
Um,
think subconsciously, then you'll actually turn away
mhm.
good men, right? And then you'll keep choosing to engage and entertain with men that are similar to the last one, right? So,
Exactly. Yes, that is so very true. Yes,
right,
that
because I
is true.
mean, you got to keep the narrative going, right? If
Hey,
if
you
that
do.
if subconsciously, if you really believe the words or the lyrics to this song, then you have to somehow allow this thing to continue to manifest, right? So, and you play a part in that. So,
Mm-hmm. No, that is good. But I think that's cool that you was like, nah, I can't do this anymore. Um, because I think, sometimes songs are good. It's just a jam. Like Keisha Cole has some jams. But it's like if I know that I'm using this in a way to feed on the emotions that I'm feeling about this person, then that is like a negative thing.
right,
Versus
exactly.
me just jamming to this song right
Yeah,
now.
it wasn't a jam for
No, it
me.
was definitely like, all right. It
It
was
was
on
like
repeat.
exactly. It was on repeat. Y'all always
On
knew when something was wrong.
repeat. I was like, okay, we on this
They said,
singing
"Wait,
it
we know it's
again.
Keisha Cole, but what track is it? Oh, it's that
Listen,
one? Oh, nah."
yeah,
Like, go
nope.
ahead,
She can't listen to this. No, we gonna hide her CD. How about that?
man.
Just go take it and misplace it somewhere. But yeah, that's funny how that works with that, because that song is then will be tied to that memory of that hurt like forever. And
Right.
yeah, I definitely have some songs like that, of songs that's just tied to hurt. I think mine's is Frank Ocean, like the whole album. I was like, this album just makes me so sad. So,
Mm,
like, I can't even listen to this. Like, this is crazy. It's such a great album, but yeah, it just makes me so sad. It's
right.
just crazy. So yeah,
I mean, and sometimes it's good because you need to feel your feelings, right?
that's true. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's when it gets excessive.
Yeah.
Like you said, the on repeat. It's like, okay, you know all the lyrics. You said what she said. You heard what she said. Okay.
Now, come on, next track now. We got to
Right.
snap next track, I said.
Exactly.
But woo,
We
but
can't dwell here.
listen, but in that moment when you hurt, man, it
Yeah.
definitely feels good to be in
Right.
that company of that. But I think that comes with some maturity and some growth to be like, okay, I got to chill.
Right. And to me, that was better than the alternative, right?
Hey,
Better for
listen,
me to just listen to sad music than to actually respond.
exactly, because
So,
I'm gonna listen to this music or I could be in jail. Because
right.
hey, either one, I don't
Either one.
know.
Choose violence.
Choosing violence, the violence switch will be on. Because yeah, so very glad you didn't choose violence, because I love you. And back then, I definitely didn't have no bail money, so
I have faith that you have it now.
I mean, I do. Listen, I will have the bail money for you now, so don't worry. But we live in different lives, so
We
we
are.
don't
We live
even
in different
accept
lives.
that behavior
Exactly.
from
We
somebody's
don't.
son. So we just
Hello,
nip that in the
somebody.
bud. Listen,
Exactly.
exactly. No, yo.
It's a non-issue at this point.
It's a non-issue because we could do bad all by ourselves. That was another song my mom used to listen to all the time. And as a kid, you don't understand stuff, but now it's just like, yeah, I can do bad by myself because I don't need no help. And that's how I feel. Like I can be by myself. I don't need you doing that and being a mess with me to bring me down. So yeah, that's it.
That's funny.
I love that song. Now that I'm older. So yeah, triggers, man.
Yeah.
Ah,
I think another one. So I actually didn't even realize that this was
mm,
one. Somebody else had to point this out to me, and that's why it's great to have some perspective.
mhm,
Um, so someone told me, they were like, some people, right, will, as a form of manipulation for me, like let's say I communicate a boundary,
mhm,
they will create an imminent need
mm.
to make me go back on the boundary.
Oh wow.
Right. And so when this person said this to me, I was like, that's interesting. And I really had to sit and think about that for quite some
Mhm.
time. Right. Because I am empathic. Right.
Absolutely, very
So
much so.
if
Yeah.
I feel that somebody needs me or needs something, I feel like, oh, I can put this other stuff to the side. Right. It doesn't matter about whatever. Let me just be there. But when they said that, I played out a couple scenarios in my mind and I was like, that is so interesting that actually I believe it. Like I think that
Wow.
that's true. So now, because it triggers me to to dismiss whatever the offense was,
Mhm.
right? Like, and I remember when my first boyfriend, when I finally was like, I'm done, da 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 da, like there is nothing that he would not do to get me to come back.
Listen.
What about my son? Hey, your son, sir, not mine. Okay.
I don't even know
I don't have
this
kids.
kid. F them kids,
No, no, no.
boy.
I actually really did. I really
Yeah.
did adore
Oh.
and love his son. And it was hard for me to walk away from
Yeah.
him. He would like call me and have his son leave voice messages. Like he was just
Oh my
dirty. Oh
God.
yes, very,
The
very
big
low.
guns. Okay.
Very low. Very low. Right. Um, but I
Who
remember this one
does
time.
that? Involve
Exactly,
their kid. Like
exactly,
what?
exactly. Right. Right. I said no. And then you're like, well, what about look, this is your son. It's your job to communicate to your son while we are not in a relationship. This
My
is not
baby
my
miss
job.
you so much,
Exactly.
sir. What? He don't even know what's going on, child.
But as
Crazy.
an adult, right, and also you have to be responsible for the consequences of your actions. So if this is the consequence, you, sir, are responsible for whatever comes along with it
It's on
because you
you.
had no issue doing the things that you did. So I hope it was worth it, right? Because now
Exactly.
you're responsible for the chips to fall however they may, right? That's
Hey.
not on me, that's on you. But another thing was, this is where he got me. So he said that, and then
Mm.
I loved his mother.
No.
So he would, like, on holidays and stuff. This one time he called me. First of all, he would call me from different numbers because I told him don't call me no more, right? So I had to like save every number that he called me from as don't answer, don't answer,
That's
don't answer, don't
crazy.
answer, don't answer, don't answer. And I remember you used to say don't answer,
Right.
right?
Don't
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 answer.
answer.
But this is how he got me this one day. So okay, before that, so this one time it was a holiday and he called and all his family, was over. And he literally passed the phone around to everybody in the house. And I was like, okay, but first of all, they don't know that we're not together. That's number one.
So
So
how
you're
do I
putting
even play
on a
this
whole
song?
facade.
A whole
You're putting
one.
on a facade. So then by the time the phone got to his mom, I was like, so we're not together. She's like, I know. She
No.
said, he don't know how to tell us. She said, we know because you haven't been here. I haven't seen you.
And mamas be knowing.
She was like, I know. She said, I'm waiting on him to tell me.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
like, okay. So then, this one day he called me and he said that, so he called with a bunch of imminent needs, right? And for the most part, I was like, I almost broke a couple times, but I was like, stay
Mm-hmm.
strong, right? But most of the time he would have to leave it on my voicemail if I knew it was him.
Yeah.
But this one time he called and on my voicemail said that his brother died.
Mm.
And I was like, dang.
Mm. The empath was like,
Right.
I'll be there for you.
So I was like, oh no.
What do I do
What do I
now?
do now? Oh, right.
How do I block this?
Jeez.
No.
Why did I listen?
Right.
Delete. When you see the voicemail, delete.
Now I can't unheard it.
Exactly. So yeah, I reverted back. I
Oh.
did. I reverted back, and then I was like, there's nothing, like I can't do, like there's nothing that I can do. I'm sorry that this happened,
Yeah.
But then of course he tried to turn that on me, and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
back to the whole don't answer.
Right. Back at
This
square
right here
one.
is why we don't answer.
Listen,
Because you give somebody an inch and they want to take a whole mile.
they
And
they
then
will
flip it
try.
on you like you the one who did them wrong, but they the one who stabbed you directly in the back. You just took the knife out, handed it back to them, and walked away, and they mad because you walked away.
Exactly.
That does not make any sense.
Listen, because you was too far, they can't reach you to stab you again.
Right.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so now that's something that literally when people do that now, I feel it, like my body pauses.
Yeah. No, that's
because
a good one.
my immediate response is like to like run to them. But then my body is like, this is manipulation.
Yeah.
You just communicated a boundary, and they don't respect your boundary.
Yeah. We having some issues here. But no, I'm so glad that that's something else that she figured out, because yeah, Sherry Renee is very much an empath. And very much so likes to be supportive and be there for people. So I'm glad you figured that out.
Yes. But now anytime I'm aware of that, I'm like, okay, so you hear my boundary, you don't respect it, you're willing to manipulate, and there is no level of low that you won't go to. So thank you.
Listen, that's so tight. I mean, in hindsight, after you've done those things, but it's cool how your body and your mind remembers those things though.
Well, here's the thing. I actually had no clue. Like I've done this over and over and over again. It's not until it was maybe like 2 years ago where someone told me this, and I said, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I like literally recalled to my mind all the scenarios where I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
Right. But so shame on them for doing it, right? But then shame on me for continuing to fall in the same pattern.
Yeah.
And so once I hear something, I cannot unlearn something once I learn it. Like it's in there.
It's out.
So
yeah.
Once I had this new information, I was like, oh, okay.
Listen. And I'm sure it was for the betterment, because now I don't need these people in my life. Like I can't live like this because that's too much.
But I think that we don't, well, for me, I literally did not realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh my God, am I really going to do this to them? But it's like, if that's not switching the
man, I'm sure that was just like a mind-blowing thing.
It was
to see it like that.
And
to have somebody else point it out to you.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
To have somebody else point it out to me.
That's
and
huge.
It's crazy because the way that it came to is I had a dream, like a weird dream.
Okay.
And I saw this lady
who
was talking about how your dreams are your subconscious mind. So during the day, we can regulate our thoughts, right? We can dismiss them. Any thoughts that we have, like, oh, I think Chanel's dead because she didn't show up today, right?
Yeah.
We can dismiss them. We can say that's not logical. That doesn't make sense. You can filter it out. But when you're asleep, your mind just does what it wants to do. And that's how we have all these weird, crazy dreams. And so she was saying, like, she's a dream interpreter, which sounds weird. And I thought it was weird too. So y'all don't judge me. But she was just basically talking about how your dreams are really just your mind just showing you in picture format what you really know to be true, right? But when you're awake, even though a lot of times we know the truth, we will not admit to it. We will not accept it because it's not what we want it to be. So I had this weird dream. I ended up talking to her about it, and she literally and like decoded it and analyzed it. And
Mm.
she was like, hmm, that's weird. Like she was like, I think people like that's how people manipulate you, is they
Wow.
play off your empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, what? And then she literally broke down the scenario of what happened in the dream. And I was like, oh
That's crazy.
my gosh. So that's when it became very clear to me that I was going to have to change. Because,
Hey,
once you know something, you have to be accountable for it. That's how I feel about it.
you
Like, you
have
have to
to.
be accountable for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because once you know better, you're supposed to do better. So
you're
you
supposed
got,
to do better, or
listen,
at least try.
you
I
got
mean,
to.
look, other stuff still may happen, but you're not going to get me that way again.
Yeah, no, no. Because now I know and I'm aware of it. And awareness
Exactly.
is everything. So,
Right. Exactly. And then too, when people, if you are empathic, right, and then people say like, oh, you're heartless, right, because they're trying to use a form of manipulation and you don't bite,
mm-hmm.
right, then that can be hard too. But now that I know, I'm like, sure, whatever, because I know.
Right.
Call me
To,
whatever name you want. Okay. It
right.
doesn't
Go
change
right
it
ahead.
doesn't change anything. So yeah. Since you want to call names, you do that, and I'll be over here
Right. I was just about to say, I'll be over here minding my business.
minding
Like
my
you
business.
need to be minding yours. So
Right.
there we go. Wow.
But
Oh.
yeah, that was like a big revelation that I got
Mm.
like maybe 2 years ago. So that's something that now, like the second that I see it, I'm like, what?
That's a huge one. Yeah.
hmm
And I think it's just dope how it came about. Like somebody saw that from the outside looking in
Yep.
and pointed it out.
Perspective, right? A different
Yeah.
perspective. Because I was
Yes.
like, I would have never seen it that way.
Yeah.
Probably never.
Mm. Mm. And think about how much more peace you've gotten in your life since then. I'm sure it's been a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think it makes you more confident, right, in
Mm-hmm.
your decisions because you're
Yeah.
like, because you almost expect it now. You're like, so I'm going to communicate a boundary because this is how it goes. I'm going to communicate a boundary. That person's not going to respect it. They're going to try to play off my empathy. Then when I don't bite, they're going to call me names. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we know the script, I don't need to react, right?
Right. I could skip, I could cut out all
Yeah,
these
I can cut
scenes
it
because
out
I don't
because
even need to do this.
now when you play out the script, I'll just be like, okay, and this just confirms my original thought,
There we go.
right?
I've already seen this movie.
Exactly. Right.
I'm not watching it. Yeah, that's good.
But
That's
yeah, and
good.
that's why. So the whole point of bringing that up is because some triggers can be positive,
Sure.
right? Because the body is trying to warn you of a threat. It is trying to tell you to remember this. Remember, like, don't fall for this again.
Yeah.
So there are some things where it does serve you, right? And there are some, like with my stepmom calling me, where it just doesn't.
There we go. Yeah, it definitely serves as a like a safety precaution, like you said. Like this is my body is trying to protect itself from something,
Right.
which is
Exactly.
not always bad. Like that's good. Save me some heartache, some confusion,
Right.
some of those emotions that are just tiring. So
Right.
mm,
And that's the other thing too, is that now, like when I think that I'm pretty intuitive
mm-hmm.
sometimes. When I listen, a lot of times I don't obey my own body. That's what I don't like
Mm-hmm.
about me. I'm like, you knew this, and here you are.
Yeah, that's
But
an empath fighting itself. Like I know.
because I will try to talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
Like literally, sometimes when I'm aware of something, I'll be like, but there's no evidence of this.
Mm.
Where's the physical evidence of any of this? Are you crazy? Is this an insecurity?
Oh
Right? Like
no.
these are the questions. Like I literally talk myself out of it. And then I'll be like, so then I'll make myself not only do the thing that I was not going to do, but do it big.
Mm.
Like, I'm like, well, now you got to go all in because
Listen.
this is an insecurity. Well, we have to overcome this.
Listen.
But then when you end up and it is what you knew that it was, then you're like, okay, when we going to just listen to ourselves? Your intuition said
Exactly.
what she said.
Could have saved myself some time and effort here, but here we
Right.
are.
Here we are.
Here we are, man. Mm.
Any other trauma triggers?
No, I think and I'm not even gonna say no. I shouldn't even say that. I'm pretty sure I have some more that will soon be uncovered. because I feel like as with this healing process that I feel like we've been on, and you've been listening and riding with us. If you're also on a healing journey, I think there's so much to uncover all the time, especially like trauma. We have so much childhood trauma. I'm 34, so I have 34 years of trauma to unpack, of things that have happened in my life where, while I recognize some today that I've shared, but there are still like tons more that I haven't even uncovered yet myself. Which is a little scary, but it's also like enlightening too. Like there's so much more healing for me to go, like some layers to dig into yet.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So then what goes in the to-go box?
Ooh. For me, what goes into the to-go boxes is learning the triggers, and learning how to cope with those triggers and not letting those triggers like define who I am, or just keep me in a place of, being the same and not growing and evolving from that, is what I'm taking away from. Because I mean, some of the triggers that I named, especially like for my mom, or like just not living in fear is something that comes with that trigger. But I can't live in that fear that my mom is going to pass away just because her mom passed away, and those cycles of those things. But allowing her to live her life and allowing me to live my life without, living in fear. And the same thing with the relationship one, understanding that I have to make it known of, what I'm expecting in a relationship, and the role that I want to play in a relationship, and having the discernment to listen to God when he's telling me like the person that I should be with and not the person that I want to be with. So things like that, like all of that plays into it, but just listening and growing and not being afraid of my triggers.
No, that's good. I agree. I agree. I too must continue to learn them and figure out if it serves me or not, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, some are good, some not so good. I do think some people, like I think that day you probably was like, she's crazy. I'll be there when I get there, right? And I know my mama would be like, girl, stop calling me.
Hilarious.
Are you an adult or not? Okay, go adults or do whatever you're supposed to do.
Whatever you're supposed to be doing, child.
But I think it's also once we become aware, then we can figure out, we can contextualize it, right? And say, okay, is this even a valid feeling right now, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it helps you to communicate what you need, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew that my stepmother was like, she needs to, like, if she calls, she wants you to answer because in her mind you're dead too.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to her son.
Yeah.
But when I stayed in her house for 6 months and my sister would leave and go home and she wouldn't call, like my stepmother would be like, oh, call Brittany, see if she made it home. And if I called it, I'd be like, oh, she ain't answer. And I get back into the conversation and she's like, so Brittany didn't pick up. Like she'll just, like she tried to be cool about it, but I could physically see how it was affecting her. So now that's why, like, whenever she called, I don't care what I'm doing, I answer. Like I'll be on a work call, I'll go off camera and be like, I want to call, click, because I just need you to know.
Right. That I'm okay. Yeah.
I'm still in the land of the living. That's all. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to know. So I think once you understand what your triggers are, I think it helps you to explain that to people so that they're not like, okay, this person is crazy.
You crazy, yes.
Right. Which actually, my stalker, he was like, I need to explain to you why I expect you to respond. And I was like, you're
crazy. Right.
But, maybe he has some type of trauma, but let me tell you something. You don't get to have trauma triggers with me if you don't know me.
That ain't for you to figure out. Listen, that ain't for you to figure out.
Exactly.
You figure that out on your own.
If I don't know you, look, if I don't know you, I don't have trauma triggers for you because I don't know you.
We're strangers,
so if you don't pick up, I probably don't even remember,
Exactly.
If you don't respond, then you just don't respond.
Because first of all, your name and number not even saved in my phone. That's how much I don't even know you. You are 7 digits, 7 to 10 digits. I don't know you, sir. It's okay. You don't have to explain nothing to me. That is funny.
Right.
let me tell you
Exactly.
why.
We've
For
established
what?
nothing. Right. You don't get to, exactly. You don't get to tell me a thing.
Tell me what, sir? What are you talking about?
That is funny. Now it's funny. But back then I was like, I
Right.
think
Back
this
then,
really
yeah.
is crazy.
That was not funny back then. That was scary as
He
hell.
really has lost it.
Me. I'm glad we can laugh about it now. But it was not funny.
Right.
So mad.
I know, right? Because I was like, no, my dad gotta go back to jail. And he's been out for
Girl.
so long, you know.
Girl, your dad was, listen, I would have had the bail money for your daddy too. Like, no, he innocent because he was protecting his baby.
They would have been like, ma'am, he is so far from innocent.
We seen them do it.
Right. He did it in front of us. Okay?
Oh my God.
But
Oh,
yes, but I think that, awareness is key,
yeah.
right? It allows us to learn more about ourselves and to evolve, keep the triggers that serve us, try to cope with the ones that don't, communicate to our loved ones so that they know that we're not really crazy, just a tinge.
Hey, it's a 10. Hey.
Just a tinge. Only if I care, right? I'm only like pick up the phone if I care. If I don't care, then I don't care. Right?
Yeah, definitely
don't pick up, whatever.
Hey, whatever you choose to do.
Whatever you want to do.
Matter. But not even
I
crazy.
probably didn't call you no way. So
right. Listen, again, you're not even in my contacts, so it doesn't matter. Only if you're in my contacts do I care. Listen.
That is funny.
I love it. Hilarious.
Funny. Well, thanks for tuning into Brunch with Besties podcast. Tell us what your trauma triggers are.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to create a Google form. It will be in the notes of this episode, and I'll put it in Ask a Bestie, so you can fill in any questions if you want, or if you want to share any trauma triggers or anything with us. Thanks, besties.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.